Welcome everybody to our weekly energy update here from sunny Colorado in the United States. My name is Jona Bryndis, and this energy update is for energetically sensitives and empaths as always. So let's look into what this week will bring us. Some of the challenges, some of the things that we can do to neutralize them, and how to deal with them. So looking at the energy report for week 15, which I called Musical Chairs, Claim Your Chair, I always start off with the recap of the last week, and for most of us this was quite a challenging week, even though nothing really happened. Everything that was going on was more or less internal, and if you were one of those who had lots of head pressure, dizziness, nausea, really severe nausea in some cases, and you really felt like things are just too much and you can't handle them and they're just too overwhelming, well, know that you were not alone. So it wasn't so much that we felt this constant sort of underlying bombardment there. It was more that it didn't seem to have a true reason. It wasn't triggered by any outer drama. It was all going on in our own heads. The nausea, though, is always a sign that there's some strong energy coming in, and of course this wouldn't be an energy update reflecting on collective energies if that wasn't part of the deal. So what's up with us energetically sensitives and empaths? It's pretty simple. We just feel it more. So those energies are always there, and if you have no clue what I'm talking about, then just stay with me here for a minute. In my experience here working as an energy healer and energy coach at transCODES, it's really important sometimes to get a little bit of an overview over what is coming in from the outside, so that we don't ponder too much with our own stuff, that we don't dwell too much on our own stuff and think we're the only ones. So I work with hundreds of people every week and get a pretty good sort of overall tendency here. The people that work with me are from all over the world. So let's see what this energy report is also pointing out. One of the big things I noticed the last couple of weeks really is this tendency to isolate. This is what we empaths do. When things get too much, we pull in and we don't share, and we just try to get through it. And last week was particularly bad, actually. We tried to just get through, just get past whatever is bugging us, and this has led to withdrawing a bit. And withdrawing is something that I talked about the week prior to this week's energy report is tricky. All right. So if we shut down or check out, we're not just checking out from our energetic sensitivity. We're checking out from feeling our feelings altogether. And that's something looking at what most people really need, which is inner connection, is counterproductive. So dealing with outer energies, with collective energies, but also our own, can best be done by connecting within and seeking the warmth of our heart and observe, actually witness those energies from within, and allow ourselves to feel out what it truly is that's in the way. So the energetic protection aspect of that is that as we check out, no matter what it is that we use as coping mechanisms, it could be anything from watching TV to drinking alcohol, drugs, parties, but also just, excessively sleeping or just not wanting to participate in what is going on around us, is that it leads to us not really occupying our energy body. And those of you who are familiar with etheric or psychic defense, whatever you want to call it, you must know that this really means that you handing over your energy body to outer energies. So in the end, the checking out is what makes it worse. So my tip here in general is to face it, to hold your space even when it gets challenging. And this way, to maintain your energetic integrity. And the way we can do this is to be present, to really be present, to not think that, it's other people or collective energies that are responsible for this. This is not my deal, I'm checking out. But to be present and feel it. You don't have to participate in all the rah-rah of it, you just acknowledge it and you witness it. So your job as an energetically sensitive person is to witness what is going on. And as a person who is in interaction or in relationship with others, it means to internalize your own needs and stand up for your values and your boundaries. So if you withdraw, you really can't do this. So what I recommended here in the energy report is to really pay attention to your daily exposure and come up maybe with a daily healing ritual. This can be going outside, spend some time in nature. As you can see, I have my workplace here out in nature. I'm sitting in a tent and expose myself to the purity of nature energies here, which is very protective for me and also helps me to clear the energies of my daily work. So that could be one of the healing rituals. It could also be, of course, using sage or taking a shower when you come home from work, or if you don't have to leave your house to work, to really spend some time with daily meditations. The energy centers, for those of you who are familiar with chakras that are very challenged these days, are our first. This has been going on for a while already, and now the energy translation or regulation in our third chakra. So here you can see a chart. It may seem a bit complex at first, but it shows you some of the symptoms of prolonged either enlargement or contraction in your third chakra. So right now, the biggest challenge is to be present and to claim our space, which means we can't afford to just run around like a chicken with a head cut off and be fire putter outers. We can't afford falling for our fixerdom, like trying to help others, trying to save the world, because it puts us into this place of constantly being scattered and really not very integrous. I know this sounds a bit off for some of you because you think that being of service to others is what you're supposed to do. This may be true, but you can't be of service to others if you're like a pushover, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you don't love yourself enough. So some of that conflict that is going through us right now is that aspect of realizing how we actually enable some of these things that we so generously blame on others. But in reality, it's really us that who need to step up. We need to step up and claim our space here and claim our inner power. And that's all there is to say about this. Now, the challenges as for next week, or this week that we are in right now, which we can already see in the news and so forth, is that everybody is plagued with these inner conflicts. And and this duality of wanting to be somebody and sort of acting incongruent, really. And so there's a lot of irrationality now that is coming at us. And if you don't want to be a part of those who, just sort of act out in a really sort of odd or actually kind of rude way with your friends or loved ones, then really heed those words and go within, okay? Those conflicts that you are experiencing are coming from within. It's also the time now this week where there's a lot of karmic guilt triggered in many of us. And I don't want to really go into the esoteric or spiritual aspect of this right now. I have a lot written about this and entire webinars that you can look up here on YouTube. But the main way to get through this sort of feeling of not being deserving, of being inadequate and so forth, can only be resolved if we go into this inner absolution, this inner reconciliation ability that we have. We won't ever get this absolution that we want, or that recognition or acknowledgement that we're good enough from the outside, guys. We need to give this to ourselves. So my tip here in the energy report is to stop energizing what we don't want. Stop pushing into what, doesn't work, what isn't covering your needs. Go into how you want it. It's not about the why. It's not why are we here? Why do we have so much pain? It's about how. How can we get through this? We have all the tools. We have all the powers. Now get to work, make them work for you. The problem with not doing this or avoiding this, and this is particularly important for us energetically sensitives and empaths to understand, because there's a reason why we have this sensitivity, is that if we don't work with our energetic sensitivity and reject it, it will be very difficult for us to embrace the gift that is in that. And so we often resort to the shadow aspect of our energetic sensitivity. The manipulation, the games, the emotional games, the codependency is probably one of the most prevalent symptoms amongst empaths. And as we do this, it actually feeds the dark in us. So if you are concerned about outer darker energies coming in, again, make sure you're present. If you're handing over the key to your house, you're going to have stuff come in, But the second most important thing is, really consider how you dealing with all of this is, whether this is feeding, your inner light, or whether this is actually feeding your darkness. So shadow work has been on the menu here for a couple of weeks already, and it will continue. And quite frankly, this entire week will be about shadow work, but not the way you think it is. It's not about beating ourselves up over the stuff that we did in the past. No, it's about not recognizing the true power that we have and how we actually misuse it. So in conjunction with others, with our loved ones and relationships, this plays a really big role. And if you find yourself in repeating karmic relationships that just sort of seem to end up in the same old drama of you getting stepped over, or you being taken advantage of, or getting drained until you can't hold it anymore and explode, like some of us have to at some point because we've missed out on setting clear boundaries, then really try to reflect on how you can release and neutralize some of those inner conflicts. And when I say neutralize, I don't mean sort of mentalize or conceptualize. I mean, really go in and say, hey, I think I can improve some of the things, how I deal with things, and within yourself, to step up and own your shit. Like really go there and look at the things that are okay for you and that are not okay for you. And if they're not okay for you, then stop enabling them. You can't blame the others. Most of us make the mistake that we never really step up, that we never claim our space, that we never claim our chair in this game. And then we get all pouty and retreat and blame the others or collective energies. So the whole point here is to understand that this duality within us needs to be addressed. And being energetically sensitive, kind of forces you to do that. Of course, you always have the choice, so it's, up to you and your alignment where you want to go. But you can't blame others for it, for your misery. So another thing that we're going to see on the outside, like geopolitically in the news around us, is like really sort of weird or inappropriate demonstrations of power, where people just really go over the top. And I don't want to go into the graphics of it, but I think you all know how this can display. We know the times that we live in right now are challenging for everybody. And you having this energetic sensitivity allows you to become aware of your skills. The majority of the people on this planet are not aware of those skills. So put them to use. What I find still difficult myself to deal with, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, is the deception that's going on. And not so much just the fake news. All these things are not relevant to our relationships. It's really the deception that comes out of this unawareness. And while there's an innocence in that, and people can't really be held responsible for the things that they're not aware of. But it can be hard sometimes as an empath to talk to people and they say one thing and you can feel exactly that they're thinking or feeling another. So dealing with deception, is something that we kind of need to suck up. We need to accept that. We need to accept that most people are living in their false selves or projections of themselves, and we cannot force them to see truth. So the ability to discern truth is something that we, as part of our skill set, and that's not something everybody wants. So trying to heal the world or trying to save others or fix others is really futile. When people ask you how you see things, you can share this, but for the most part, we have to live with the fact that we're a minority and that there's not many people out there that actually understand what we're talking about. So don't get caught up in this musical chairs games, game that is a sort of just frazzling your energy. Know who you are, know what your values are, know what your integrity is, and express it and live it. And if there's not many people in your life who you can share this with, then find them. Go out. Don't isolate. You're not going to be able to get through all this on your own. This is a form of specialness, guys. This retreating into this poutiness of like, oh, nobody understands me. Sure, it's tough. But it's not going to make you grow. It's not going to make you learn how to become the best of you. So let's look at the energy tip for this week. Grounding is still really important for our first chakra. on all levels: physical grounding, emotional grounding, mental grounding, and spiritual grounding. Now, how does that work? There are some suggestions here at the transCODES website that we made over the years, as to how to physically ground yourself. And after all our energy sessions are about that, how to learn how to do certain things, how to work our energy, how to learn this inner lexicon of sensations, of energetic sensations. So that would be something that you can search for at the transCODES website by keywords. But I think the most important thing for this week, to get through without this a sort of polarization of like me and the others, me and the outside world, is to go out and become more courageous in communicating your true feelings and your needs. Of course, not to, people who don't want to hear this, but to people who matter to you, your loved ones. So it's all about finding a better balance here, as an energetically sensitive person and as a caring person, but also self-caring person. So we need to find better ways to love ourselves and express our care for others without infringing. So in the energy report, you'll see something there that may upset you a little bit, but quite frankly, I'm not really in the business anymore of trying to convince people of things. We're starting to run out of time. So if you don't know yet what it's like to project your stuff onto others, then you haven't really done any shadow work. This is one of the biggest things that energetically sensitives and empaths have to work with. So first and fifth chakra this week, the grounding and the expression, those are the things that we need to focus on to step into our truth. And even if it means stepping into that inner truth of seeing some of our shadow traits. There's nothing bad about discovering that we have been misusing some of our energetic powers. We kind of all do, because most of us had a traumatic sort of upbringing with our energetic sensitivity. We always feel like sort of on the outs, so it became part of our coping mechanism. So all that is fine. It's nothing to beat yourself up over. But don't get pulled into thinking you're powerless either. So it's really about finding this place within us that can assure us that we have the right to be here and that we have the skills to change that. There's no reason to give up. And in the energy tip here, I'm asking some questions that may or may not help you to increase the quality of your communication. Ask yourself, what in me keeps me getting off this balance? How does it happen that I, constantly disregard my own needs and sort of get this juice, this payoff, or deceiving payoff of trying to fix others? So how come I can't feel this? Are there things I can't forgive myself for, or others? That's a big question this week. In many sessions in the last couple of days, forgiveness work was sort of the number one way to get through this. When things get tough, do I immediately blame others, or do I get defensive or offensive? This is a really important question, and I have to ask that myself as well. Seeing the world as hostile, or the person in front of me as hostile, and getting defensive is a choice. I don't have to feel attacked. So if I can stay in my center, if I can claim my space, I don't have to feel attacked. I can witness, I can observe, and I can engage, but I don't need to attack. Do I frequently resort to inner child behaviors? Now, this is maybe something difficult to understand if you don't know what inner child work is, but it's really that irrational behavior that I mentioned earlier that shows when we are in our inner child, regardless of our better knowing. So, we all have an inner child or inner children, really, that are not fully resolved or fully reconciled with ourselves. So being in our inner child behaviors really, it shows up when we lose it, when we go into this tantrum or this whining and wallowing. Those are very typical inner child behaviors. But again, it's nothing to judge ourselves for. It just shows, at which part of our journey some of the energetic developments that had to take place back then couldn't really unfold. So a lot of times for us, it was in being told that what we're saying and how we're seeing things, or the dreams or the visions that we had, were nonsense, and that there is no such thing, and that we have to become real and so forth. A lot of us have an attachment there, a trauma attachment, and so that was also part of how we build our coping, of withdrawing and so forth, and checking out. So look into this a little bit, reflect about this a little bit. Of course, it leads to the question, how mature is my communication? So that's easy to answer then, if you go and really look at some of your childhood stuff, because a lot of times when we appear really immature, it's because there's something sitting there that we haven't really resolved yet. And last but not least, the question, am I actually really able to listen to other people's needs? Can I listen to others? Or do I want them to be healed? Do I want them to be in a certain way? And how much space can I actually give others? Can I see that we all are on the true self journey here, and that we all have our own timeline? Giving space is directly related to the ability of claiming space. So as last words here in conclusion, what we're looking at for this week is the deeper aspects of reconciling with our spiritual self. And for those of you who have a little issues with seeing yourself as a spiritual self, I'm suggesting that you go in and ask yourself what some of the really beautiful things are about you, that what we call our redeeming qualities. What are the things that make you lovable, that make you deserve love? If you can answer those questions, you'll get a lot closer to your spiritual self and don't need to struggle that much anymore. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful week this week. Probably gathering with family, Easter egg hunts, a Passover, or any other ritual that you will engage in this week. Try to really watch this a bit, like how much you can claim your space and how much you can give to others. And try to remind yourself of being the witnesser rather than being caught in the experience. The recommended energy sessions this week, in private or in group sessions, are Grace Redemption, for those of you who are interested in the deeper spiritual reconciliation with ourselves. And as for our weekend special, the Etheric Protection Intensive. It's an intensive that consists of 3 different remote energy sessions. You can book them individually or as discounted intensive here, in which we'll go through the basics of energetic perceptivity, in conjunction with others. So we're going to feel out what energetic absorption is like and what we can do to prevent this from happening. Then on Saturday we're going to feel out what energetic projection is like and how we can prevent that. And then on Sunday we'll work with the basics of energetic interaction between people. This will be particularly interesting for you who continually suffer from absorbing energies from others or who constantly feel bombarded. So I hope to see you. You can join us in this weekend session or book your sessions individually, and of course for those of you who need hands-on practical translation of some of your energetic challenges, you can book a energy coaching session with me. The first one is for free, and I hope you like this energy report. Don't forget to like us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and I wish you guys a wonderful week.